Nu skal vi have en forsker, en dame, som er rigtig dygtig, som har 22 års erfaring i international cancerpanel IARC, og 2 år som leder for cancerkontrolprogrammet fra Verdenssundhedsorganisationen WHO. Hvorfor er det især vigtigt at bekymre sig om børn, når 5G diskuteres? Bonjour, madame, I'm in Sasco.
I would say amour, because I'm Basque, in fact. I live in France, I'm Basque as a nation. That being said, let's go about the real stuff. I'm going to discuss mostly the kids today, and I will speak about what I know, my field of expertise, which is mostly on cancer. So that's an old picture from Le Monde from 2007, showing that already, in fact, in the old days, people were starting to worry about all these waves surrounding us. Who am I? I think it has been said. The only thing I want to say is that although I have been very heavily criticized, and I keep on being among some of my peer fellow scientists, I'm a true scientist. I am an MD and I have got 3 Harvard degrees. So when I talk, some people will tell me, you talk like a grandmother wanting to protect your son. Yes, I have a grandson. Yes, I want to protect my grandson. But I am also a scientist, whether they like it or not. So the questions I'm going to address today is the role of EMF and also extremely low frequency fields, so the high power lines and the like, on mostly cancer, a few other words about other diseases in children and adolescents, and I want to, all of us, to go to priority listing. We cannot do everything, but what we should do in terms of evaluation, that's mostly for scientists, and what should be done in terms of action. A few words about cancer in adolescents and children. It's a rare disease, fortunately, but it's going up, and it's going up very regularly for the past 2 or 3 decades. Why is it going up? I'm exceedingly worried about this. It's not much, 1.5% per year, but over a long period, it's really something significant and something we should be exceedingly worried about. On that slide, you have the precise increases for different types of cancer, including the cancer of the central nervous system, so mostly tumors of the brain. And that is being seen all over the world. First, it was described in Europe, but it's also true for the rest of the world, and in fact, it's in Africa, but the increase is the fastest. And what did change over 25 years? Not the genetics, okay? It takes millenniums. The behavior, yes, of course, kids are not behaving exactly the same, but not so much nevertheless. And they are not older than they were before, so age doesn't play a role. Then it was the environment. And I think that's what really is worrying me. So what do we know specifically about radio frequency, EMF, in cancer for the kids? For the kids, we know hardly anything. For the extremely low frequencies in cancer, so it's high power line, very high power line you see in the landscape, but also just the electrical system and the deperdition of electrical system with electricity in the house, it has been demonstrated that these ELF are a risk, an increased risk of childhood leukemia. Not for adults, it wasn't seen, but for childhood it was seen. And that was the main reason for putting the ELF in the 2B group of the IRC, a possible carcinogen. Only briefly mention this classification of IRC. I may, if you have questions at the end, come back to it, but I think it's exceedingly important to understand. There are 5 categories. Group 1. Group 1, we are sure that the compound, the agent, is a carcinogen. No question for humans. Group 2A, it's a probable carcinogen. So we are a little less sure, but nevertheless, the evidence seems to be good enough. 2B, we have even less evidence, yet it's highly suspect. And there is even a group 3, which is important to know, because it's often presented as there is no risk. No, again, you have to be precise. Group 3 means cannot be evaluated for carcinogenicity. So it means we do not know, and we do not know doesn't mean we know it's not. So that's very important. And there's even a group 4 for anti-carcinogen, but there's only one compound in there. I think this scale is important. And we should not equate immediately 1 to A, 2B, because, well, the level of evidence are different. For the electromagnetic field, which were more recently evaluated, the meeting was in 2011, volume came out in 2013. Again, it came out as a possible carcinogen 2B. But this time, it was based on evidence in adults for risk of brain tumors, essentially the glioma, tumors really of the brain, and the schwannomas, which are tumors of the acoustic nerve. And it was seen in adults. And I will get back to that later. So there was no study about cancer in children and adolescents at the time of the monograph meeting. Why should we worry? That's a picture from Home Gandhi, who someone who's worked a lot on how much EMF penetrates in the brain. You have an adult man where there is some penetration when he or she is holding a phone next to the ear. A 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, well, it should be the other way around, maybe, but in any event, what it shows is that if you hold the phone when you're a child, of course, you are going to expose more profound structure of your brain than when you're an adult. And even if the penetration would be on the same thickness, a few centimeters, then of course, in a child brain which is smaller, it will go further. And in addition, the water content of the brain of a kid is more important than in an adult. The skull is of course much thinner, so all that explains that it penetrates further. Since the monograph, has there been some more studies done and published, done, not published? That's what I'm going to discuss. And these are only dealing with kids and adolescents. The first study which appeared is the Cephalo study, where Denmark was a participating country, and there are Danish researchers in there. In fact, it was a Nordic country. That study was published in July 27, 2011. Why do I put this date? Because the IRC monograph meeting, which classified EMF as 2B, were held just 2 weeks before almost that study was supposedly accepted and published. So it means that some of these people who were members of the IRC Secretariat or the expert evaluating knew about that study. But not a word is said about it. And then when the classification came out as 2B, it was safe, it could come out. I will look at this study in detail. It's what we call a case reference study. A lot of people call it case control, but I don't like that term because it doesn't control for anything. So I would go along with the vocabulary of Miettinen, well-known Finnish guy, epidemiologist, who I was a TA in the old days, a case reference study. You compare to a reference. In this type of study, you are comparing cases, kids and adolescents between the ages of 7 and 19 years of age who have been diagnosed with a brain tumor. And you have a face-to-face interview with a child, if he's available, or with a parent, usually the mother. And also they collected information from the mobile phone network if they could have traffic data if kids had subscription. The study was done in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. It was funded by a mixture of public and private funding. It's something which is very fashionable nowadays. You always have public-private, but as Nico said before, you know, the private part sometimes it could be problematic. No details are given. But it was clear that in that group you have people who had clear conflict of interest with the cell phone industry. The main results of that cephalo study are here, and it's a cut and paste from the original publication, so I cannot say that I am lying. So these are their words, where they say regular users of mobile phones were not, the red of course is mine, a lot of colors, statistically significant, more likely to have been diagnosed with brain tumors. So they say no risk. The figure they give, the odds ratio, which is an estimate of relative risk, it tells you by how much the risk of developing the tumor is increased, was 1.36. When there is really no risk, it should be 1. If it were protective, it would be 0 point something, 0.7. So here it's higher than that. And then they added other things. Brain tumor was not related to a time elapsed since the mobile subscription was started. And so in fact they said, no problem. And their conclusion was exceedingly strong. The absence of an exposure-response relationship, either in terms of the amount of mobile phone use or by localization of a brain tumor, argues against a causal association. How do I read this thing? When you read a scientific paper, even if you're not a scientist, but if you are one, that's what I'm telling my students. My kid doesn't like it, but it doesn't matter. You have to look at the tables where you have the numbers. If the numbers have not been made up, that will also happen, the numbers tell you something, and you should look at the end, at the acknowledgement or at the conflict of interest. Who paid for that study? You can forget almost about the rest. In that paper, there were plenty of tables, 160 so-called odds ratio. Risk relative. 97 of these odds ratio were greater than 1. So when they looked at some amount of number of calls per day, amount duration of the calls, cumulative, whatever, this and that, they were all, almost all, greater than 1. With the smallest one being 1.09, but the highest one being 6.19. Yes, so multiply by 6, brain of brain tumors. Hey, something. Only one was statistically significant because the study was small, and therefore it doesn't have, in our jargon, the statistical power to demonstrate things it won't do that. And then, what's more, in some of the tables, they looked at dose response, cumulative duration of call, cumulative number of calls, cumulative duration of subscription. And if you look at these numbers, the longer you have been on the phone, or the kid has been on the phone, the higher the risk, even if it was not statistically significant, but the trend was clear. There were also 13 out of the 19 which were lower than 1, which really made sense because there were the ones for the location in the central part of the brain or of unknown location. But when you were looking at temporal zone, frontal zones, I mean the ones which are most exposed when you hold the phone, there was an increased risk. So my reading of the cephalo study is different from the one of the authors. I conclude that this study is a positive study. There is a risk. The risk increases with use, so it's really a positive study. And there was one risk which was statistically significant, was for the kids and adolescents who had their own subscription in their own name. So most probably adolescents are not very frequently kids have their own subscription of parents. So they may be the most heavy users of cell phones, and that risk at 2.15, so twice the risk of getting a brain tumor. So in that thing, I cannot understand, I'm still naive in my life, how they could write short-term use of mobile phone does not cause brain tumors in children and adolescents. It's impossible. And in fact, the reason why I showed you all the dates at the start is that if that study had been looked at in the IRC monograph, I think it would have made it, they would have had arguments because of the statistical significance. But, I don't know, I mean, we cannot replay the game, but it could have been a group 1 carcinogen. Because showing a risk among kids and adolescents, even if you don't care about the adults, it's a big business. And it was not done. Was it just by chance that it came out a little later? I've got doubts, and in any event, given some of the authors were in the group, they knew it existed. What happened since then? It was decided to do a larger study, given this one was too small, and the woman who did the interphone study among adults did this MobiKit study. Again, it's the same type of study, a case reference study, looking at brain tumors between the ages of 10 and 24 years of age, so kids, adolescents, and young adults, to look at the impact of mobile phone and some other sources of radio frequency. That study has been conducted in 14 countries. Denmark was not part of it. I think they had seen enough. Nor was Sweden, Norway, I mean, all the ones, and Switzerland. None of the countries, that's interesting, none of the countries of a cephalo study were in that one. They didn't want to look again. And the protocol is very correct. They did a lot of validation study, so I think they know what they are doing. And what happened? The study was the data collection from 2010 to 2015. It ended up end of December 2015. Given the study was funded, I think essentially by the European Commission, they had to send a report, a final report, which was sent on the 13th of January 2017. And what did they say in that report, which I read with the highest interest? I want to know what they found. You cannot know. There's nothing about the result. Nothing, not a word. There are pages about the protocol, validation study, the this, the that, and then, for the result, they say, analysis of the association between mobile phone use and brain tumor risk, as well as between estimated radio frequency and extremely low frequency exposure at the location of a tumor and risk of brain tumors have been conducted, and a publication is in preparation. Results, however, cannot be made public until publication in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. Perfect. A few pages later, regarding the dissemination and exploitation of the result, since the final analyses are ongoing, the main results of the study are not published yet. Documents to inform the general public about the main results of the study will be prepared as soon as the final results are available. Due to the widespread usage of communication devices, such as mobile phone, the result of a study regarding potential detrimental health effects will most likely receive a considerable degree of public attention and can potentially have significant societal implications. So far, the extensive use of very different means of communication has contributed to increase the public understanding regarding electromagnetic fields and their potential impact on health. So, that's it. Nothing more, no results. We are now, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019. And even more than 2 years, nothing has been published. Nothing. For the interphone study, which was the one in adults, we also had to wait some 18 months between the final results were obtained and they were published, because apparently the authors had lots of discussion and problems in agreeing on the words to put around the figures, the numbers. But for the interphone, the participating countries were free to publish their own results. So we had results from Sweden, from France, from Italy, from wherever, where we could already see that although as a yes, no, have you ever used the phone or not, of course there's no impact on risk of brain tumors, but in each of the national subgroup study, the most heavily exposed, the ones who are using the phone for the most minutes per day, longer duration in years, whatever, had an increased risk. And that, of course, came out from the final analysis. So we had some information. For the MOBI kids, I'm sure that the investigator had to sign a contract saying they're not going to release the national result until the full results will be published. So we don't even know. And I haven't tried to contact some of these researchers. I know them. I spent 2 years at IRC, so I know these people. I don't even want to contact them because I know for some of the investigators, I know one who's almost suicidal for the pressure being received, so I don't want to put pressure on the researchers. But I want to put pressure on the institutions which funded this study, on the CREAL, which is now called ISIS Global in Barcelona, who received the funding, and on the IRC, because it was started at IRC. So I think we can request the head of these institutions, not individual guys and girls who did what they could, and some, I'm sure, can no longer take that stuff, to get these results out. Either they didn't find what cephalofan, and it said, okay, it's fine, we can say, okay, use phone. Or they are not. There is an increased risk. And I'm not going to use the same word I used in September about what is the fact of delaying that risk, because when I did that in a public audience, video stream online in London, then after I talked, my communication has disappeared from the screens. You can no longer find it on internet because I was told I was using words that a scientist should not use. So you can call it whatever you want, but I think that retention of information is totally unethical. That's only for cancer. A few words are other diseases which are most probably increased in kids. We don't have as good studies presently available, so we need more studies. I will only mention some problems of sudden death in kids with potential exposure to antennas and stuff like that, but to be evaluated. I mean, there's no formal study, to my knowledge. There are some studies on autism now showing an increased risk, and studies showing that in utero exposure is not good for the health of the kid. But I stick to cancer, it's my stuff. So there I can answer any question. So some people, a number of scientists, maybe including some in this room, are pushing for IRC to re-evaluate immediately the EMF. I am not. First, we need to get the study out. If we re-evaluate now, it will not make it to a 1. Despite the NTP study, the Ramazzini study, the Serenat, it has not substantially changed. MOBI kids, if it's positive, then it will have a huge impact. So after that study is out, then push IRC to re-evaluate. So in the meantime, does that mean that we have nothing to do? No, I think we need to put pressure on the governments. It's good that there are political people in here, because they are the ones passing the laws. We need to protect the population. So people will say, especially the most vulnerable, the pregnant women, the kids. But usually, we don't put the pregnant women in a camp or in a white zone so that they will not be exposed. Given pregnant women and kids live in the population, I think the only way around for environmental exposure, that applies also to pesticides and many of them, is to protect everyone, or at least not to expose everyone. We cannot say, okay, I'm going to protect the kids. I mean, it's a good thing. And I am for schools without Wi-Fi and all that. Of course, the kids have to be protected first. But we have to put pressure on the governments for them to cover the whole population without any distinction of sex or gender now or whatever age or migrant status or this or that. It should be the role to protect all. So I think, in fact, it's the citizens of all countries who have the ball in your hands. You have to put pressure for not being part as guinea pigs of a huge experiment, for saying we do not want that, and try to convince the governments. But unfortunately, many governments, I don't know anything about the Danish government, so, but my own, I think they may hear other voices who may have different arguments than mine, which may carry some weight, I don't know, but they don't seem to be that much willing to do much. And even if we have some good laws, they are not very well enforced, so France is far from being perfect. So today, I think it's no longer a question of using the precautionary principle. We have lots of evidence. So in fact, it's a question of prevention. And it was already a while ago. These are some pictures I took in Lyon, that's where the IRC is, in 2008, where a Green Party from Lyon had made this publicity just before Christmas, saying that the best thing you can give to a kid for Christmas may not be a cell phone. So I think we said it before, we keep on saying it, and in fact, as an MD, I will always refer to Hippocrates, and one of his principles, in Latin, primum non nocere, first do no harm. I think it's the role of the doctors. Prevention is not for stupid ones who are not good enough to do the real stuff. No, prevention is a very important field. In the traditional Chinese medicine, the doctor was paid as long as the patient was healthy, and I think that was a good way to do it, because we need to protect people, and at least we need not to harm populations. In 2008, with David Servan-Schreiber, some of you may know this guy who has written books which have been translated in many languages on the prevention of cancer, who died himself from glioblastoma, so he's no longer around. We wrote a text, an appeal on cell phones, which was one of the first. Now there have been many more. And, but it started from France. I insist on that because then it was translated, I translated it into English and it would try to change, forget about that. So we already were telling people what we are still saying today. If you use a cell phone, use a loudspeaker, send a text message. Don't let it touch your skin. Don't use it when you don't need to use it. Turn it off at night. So that's things that people can do and should do. But then there are things people cannot control. With 5G, we all are going to have antenna everywhere. And we still have to walk in the street. A pregnant woman still has to walk in the street. Everyone will be exposed, and they have not, these citizens, decided to be exposed. So I think we need really to work on that, awareness of the people so that they can act on their politicians, so that they can themselves do something. Because as I would be telling to a politician, you know, also you are going to be exposed. But when you see, even that is not a good argument. Because if you go to the US and you look at people, some like Bill Gates or Trump, one of them, they don't have antennas close to where they live. Their kids go to school where there is no Wi-Fi. So why, if it's bad for their kid, will it be good for the rest of the world? Doesn't work. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, madame le docteur. Merci.